Hello, I've been morbidly depressed for the last sort of 3 days, so I haven't been on the internet very much making some YouTube videos, but just saw this article today. And I just want to preface this entire thing by saying that I've got the utmost respect for the National Health Service and NHS workers who go above and beyond the call of duty to help save people's lives. To save my life in July 2024, and I woke up from an induced coma with tubes coming out of every orifice, and was absolutely mortified and treated me well with dignity and respect, and I wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for the NHS. My mum was a third year nursing student when she sadly passed away from cancer. She was working on Turner Ward in Torbay Hospital when she sadly was struck down with adenocarcinoma, and she was married off on the ward with the Registrar's General licence that somebody got very quickly, and she died about 8 weeks after she was married. But she was in her third year as a nursing student, training to be a nurse. She was a very caring, affectionate and loving person. Aside from what's happened there and what I think about the NHS, here's this article, right? Fake nurse crackdown to boost public safety. New measures to make it a criminal offence for people who are not qualified as a nurse to use the title and mislead the public. This is from the Department of Health and Social Care and the Right Honourable Wes Streeting MP. The article reads, anyone misleading the public and describing themselves as a nurse without the relevant qualifications and registration will be committing a crime under new measures announced by the government to protect the title nurse in law. The move will help to boost protections and the safety for both patients and staff, driving up standards and improving patient experience across the NHS through the government's plan for change. Currently, anyone, including those struck off of the Nursing and Midwifery Council, NMC, for serious misconduct or criminal convictions can still call themselves a nurse. This can result in the public thinking they're getting advice and care from an expert professional like a nurse when they're not. Previous reported examples of the job title being misused include someone calling herself a nurse at a large public event after being struck off, and another reportedly masquerading as an anaesthetic nurse. There have been exemptions for relevant professions like veterinary nurse, dental nurse and nursery nurse where the title nurse is legitimately used. Government is listening to nurses and recognises that they are the backbone of the NHS, and today's announcement follows campaigning by unions for the government to act on the issue, as well as by Dawn Butler MP, who introduced a 10-minute rule bill earlier this year to protect the title nurse. Through Plan for Change, the government is driving forward vital reform to get the NHS back on its feet and fit for future. This year, a refreshed workforce plan would also be published to ensure the health service has the right workforce in the right place at the right time. Health and Social Care Secretary Wes Streeting has said, nurses carry out life-saving work every day, and I'm determined we do everything we can to support them and safeguard trust in the profession. I've been appalled to read reports of so-called nurses spreading dangerous misinformation and harming the public. I don't know that nurses have been spreading disinformation. That's news to me. This new legislation will help crack down on bogus beauticians and conspiracy theorists masquerading as nurses, those attempting to mislead patients. Now, it says the word conspiracy theorist in this video a couple of times, and here he says that conspiracy theorists are masquerading as nurses. Now, I don't know that, I'll just read the rest of it. So the British people hold nurses in the highest regard. We trust them in our most vulnerable moments. So patients need to know they're genuinely being seen by a nurse. Now they will. This is part of our plan for change to fix the NHS and get the right staff working in the right place at the right time. Only the title registered nurse is currently protected in law. The new legislation will change that, ensuring that only those with individuals registered with the NMC can legally use the title. Anyone violating this will be committing a criminal offence, could face a hefty fine running into thousands of pounds. There have been previous reports of bogus nurses misleadingly using the title. One ran a cosmetic clinic offering Botox and dermal filler treatments for several years despite not being registered with the NMC. Another gave a speech at COVID-19 conspiracy rally that likened NHS nurses and doctors to war criminals, spreading misinformation about vaccines and bringing her former colleagues into disrepute. She continued to call herself a nurse despite being struck off by the NMC. So this is a nurse that said that COVID was some sort of conspiracy. And she isn't a conspiracy theorist masquerading as a nurse. Or maybe she is. So she continued to call herself a nurse despite being struck off by the NMC. So this was the conspiracy theorist who tried to claim that COVID was some sort of conspiracy. That's what she said. Previous Freedom of Information requests showed that across 93% of all NHS trusts, there are more than 8,000 people with the term nurse in their job title who had no registered nursing qualifications. That's pretty shocking, isn't it? Although these people are supervised and providing important care, their job titles can cause confusion. Some, including nursery nurses, will be exempt under new legislation. Duncan Burton, Chief Nursing Officer for England, said, "The trust that people place in registered nurses is based on the rigorous training and education required to be registered as a nurse, which gives us the skills and the knowledge to deliver high quality, safe and personalised care. Nurses value this trust, and protecting the title of nurse can give added confidence and clarity to patients and the public on who's delivering their care and the skills and the knowledge that they have. There are already various safeguards in place to deter people from pretending to be a nurse. The most serious cases would be captured by fraud offences, and depending on the case, they can also be prosecuted for more serious offences like causing grievous bodily harm, assault or even manslaughter. The new legislation expected to be laid out in this Parliament will help strengthen those existing safeguards. Registered nurses go through high quality undergraduate and postgraduate degree programmes and complete processes called revalidation every 3 years, ensuring they can continually update their skill set. The new measures reflect that. Professor Nicola Ranger, Royal College of Nursing General Secretary and Chief Exec, said, "This is an important moment for our safety critical profession. After years of campaigning, a change in the law will recognise the knowledge, professionalism and clinical expertise that comes with being a registered nurse. It will provide better legal protections for nursing professionals and reassurance to patients. Crucially, this is an opportunity to begin the journey to properly valuing nursing as a profession where respect, reward and investment match the crucial nature of the work." Dr. Crystal Oldman, CBE, Chief Executive at the Queen's Institute for Community Nursing, said, "Nurses and the millions of people they care for will benefit by this proposed change in the legislation. This is a patient safety issue the QICN has been campaigning for some time. People need confidence that when the person calling for them is described as a nurse, that person really is a qualified and registered nurse." Paul Rees, MBE, Interim Chief Exec and Registrar at the NMC, said, "The public should always feel confident that anyone using the title nurse is a registered professional with all the safeguards that brings. We look forward to working with the government and our stakeholders to deliver on it. In the meantime, it's already an offence for somebody to hold themselves out as a registered nurse when they're not." Helga Pyle, Unison Head of Health, said, "Nurses and other NHS workers rightly enjoy a high level of trust because of the brilliant and important work they do. Charlatans, again, and conspiracy theorists mustn't be allowed to harm patients or damage nurses' reputation and the good standing with the public. It's only right that anyone that tries to will now feel the full force of the law." Rachel Power, Chief Exec of the Patients Association, added, "We welcome this commitment to ensuring patients know who is treating them and offering healthcare advice, and that those professionals are properly qualified. With health misinformation increasingly common, it's more important than ever that patients can trust the expertise of those caring for them." Alison Morton, CEO, Institute of Health Visiting, said, "The Institute of Health Visiting fully supports the campaign to protect the title nurse in legislation. This is urgently needed to protect the public and provide assurance that the person providing their care has the qualifications, knowledge, skills, expertise and professionalism to deliver safe and effective care. Nursing is a safety critical workforce, and in our view there is only one clear path forward. The current gap in legislation needs to be closed as a matter of urgency." Professor Greta Westwood, CBE, PhD, registered nurse, CEO of the Florence Nightingale Foundation, also said, "We welcome this recognition of the importance of the nursing role. Nurses are skilled and highly trained professionals playing a key leadership role in the health and social care sector, particularly around speaking out on patient safety and workforce challenges. This International Nurses Day, we're coming together to celebrate the incredible work nurses do across the UK and globally, and support the government taking this next step, working with the UK regulator to protect our nurses and those that we serve." Background information: the department will also establish an exemption where nurse can still be used as part of a professional title. The title nurse is already used across multiple professions, for example, registered nurses, dental nurses, nursery nurses and veterinary nurses. We expect a new protection of the title offence to be a summary offence. Where a person is found guilty of an offence on summary conviction, they'll be liable to a fine across the UK. These changes, which require legislative change, will be implemented within this Parliament as part of the government's commitment to reform and legislation of healthcare professionals across the UK. I've effectively alleged over recent period that there's some massive scandalous things that have gone on involving my care I had my life saved by the NHS, so I'm not for a minute suggesting that they're anything other than somebody that I owe a debt of gratitude towards. But there have been, like I went and got this lanyard. You might have seen me wearing it in previous videos. It just says, it's just a lanyard that says service user, and it's got my name on there. I got this fleece as well, which looks exactly like the fleeces that they wear at this mental hospital. And it's just got my name embroidered on it, and it says service user, similarly unique. The reason I got these was because I'd tried several times to get people to give me their NMC pin and show me their ID, and they simply had refused. And this had happened like quite a few different times. I did publicise this, I made YouTube videos about this. I made quite a kind of pertinent point about how I didn't feel safe, you know, that I was being told that NMC pins, even GMC, I've had an issue on this ward with a GMC registered doctor not giving his ID or GMC number because he said it was personal data that I wasn't entitled to receive. And I've had maybe 3 or 4, 5 different nurses who, when I've asked to say, can I put your details into the NMC website, the NMC, the main thing I think it's lacking is a photo, right? So that anyone can go onto the NMC website, get themselves an ID like this, obviously only in the most extreme circumstances would they be let onto a ward and into contact with patients. The hospital would have to be risibly corrupt for that to happen as a systemic and endemic action, you know, kind of routinely and sort of, you know, conspiratorially enforced. And I don't think that it's very likely that that's ever going to happen in most people's lives and lived experience of hospital. I don't think that's ever going to happen. But it could do, you know, and there's nothing to stop somebody. If I've, as a patient, when I've tried to ask nurses for their ID and they've said, no, you can't have it. And I've said, can I put your NMC pin into the website? And they've said, no, you can't. That's really raised a lot of suspicions with me. And I've had two, I've had a visit from hospital again, after I've been first admitted to this hospital. I had a severe relapse and ended up in Southmead Hospital. And that was really scary, and they took good care of me there. And I left with a dressing on my arm and my heart still beating, and I'm very grateful for that. But I just saw this article, and if you look for the term conspiracy theorist, it appears 3 times. So it's referring to this nurse that said that COVID was a conspiracy, which, like a lot of people have said. It goes on again, you know, Helga Pyle has said it for the last time in the document. The first time it's used, it's, you know, it doesn't, this is before it's contextually applied, that conspiracy theorist being somebody talking about COVID vaccines being a conspiracy. And this is just suggesting that conspiracy theorists masquerading as nurses might have a bad word to say about the NHS, or kind of like, I don't know, I think it's a brilliant bit of legislation and I broadly support that. But I don't really like it when they employ the word conspiracy theorist. I mean, in my kind of lived experience, it's been more about looking at things like a coincidence theorist. You're almost more mad to think that something might be a coincidence than you are to think that it could be a conspiracy. You know, sort of probability and the mathematical likelihood of things happening or not happening is bizarre. But yeah, that's a 15-minute video, and I don't really know what I'm trying to say. I guess I'm broadly applauding the Department of Health and Social Care and Wes Streeting for giving patients greater clarity and nurses greater confidence in who they are. I think there should be a photograph of the person on the NMC website, so when you enter an NMC pin and you look at somebody's photo ID, you can see that they are who they say they are. Check out my other YouTube videos. for more information on failures with ID and stuff. But yeah, that's all I've got to say on the matter.